Hey everyone, welcome back to Dino Comics Forever, and today I'm going to show you how I did Thanos, the Mad Titan from the upcoming Avengers movie. So like always, I'm starting off with Phase 1, which is the ink part. Well, technically this is always Phase 2, because I always usually start with the ink with a pencil drawing, but I'll show you when I do a pencil drawing next time, because I usually like to use those on a separate video. So let's say when it comes to photoshopping it, this is Phase 1, where we do the inking. So I'm starting off with the Infinity Gauntlet itself because, there's a simple version to do it, which is the Jack Kirby one from the comics, and then there's the more intricate one from the movies and the cartoon show, which is a bit more, how I say, Gauntlet-esque, because the Kirby one was more of a glove, and I understand why he did that, it's because it's easier to draw, it's more iconic, but I also like how Marvel Studios approach it by making it look like it's all armor-plated, and also kind of mechanical, because, come on, this thing is going to control everything, so it can't just be a simple piece of leather, can it now? So usually in this scene, it's nice, so it's, in this part it's always nice because there's lots of room for error, and you can always correct those on the fly, and in this phase, not too much is done, so things are easily fixed. And actually, I also would like to take this time to talk about how I actually first found Thanos, and that was actually in the old Silver Surfer cartoon from the 90s. I remember watching it as a kid, and I thought it was really cool. Not because, it was all space stuff and all that stuff, but it was actually done in the style of Jack Kirby, and I thought that was amazing, especially when the Silver Surfer uses Power Cosmic. But the thing I loved most about that series is the way the characters spoke was very theatrical, especially the Silver Surfer himself, speaking a lot about speaking in metaphors, and using lots of, how should I put this? Really intense speech as well as very elaborate wording. It was very Shakespearean in a way, and I think that's something that's kind of lost nowadays in certain comics and cartoons, because if I look at the cartoons from today, they kind of talk down to the audience. And I don't think that's what they should be going for. But yeah, I actually found Thanos in that cartoon, and he was portrayed as like a freaking psychopath trying to destroy the universe so he could, impress this chick who was pretty much the embodiment of death. And of course, well, in that cartoon they called her Lady Chaos, because back then cartoons weren't allowed to say things like death, die, or kill. They could only say things like destroy or defeat, which kind of didn't make sense to me back then, because, I knew what he was trying to do. Okay, now we're on to the shading lines, or the edging. I usually do this on top of where I did the shadow on the pencil phase, because the pencil phase, a lot of people ask me, why do you sketch out the shadows on your pencil drawing when you're just going to Photoshop at the end? Well, I do that so I know where the shadow should be when I'm Photoshopping it in the end. Because, without those lines, I'm just, I'm shooting in the dark. And, yeah, I don't want that. And, of course, I always like, adding these little lines, and then when I speed up the video, it looks really cool. I'm sorry, I think that's so cool. Like, that's just me. Not important, but, whatever keeps you sane on the Mondays. Okay, we're nearly done, just adding some more lines. Shall I do the sound effect again? Okay, why not? Zoop, 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 zoop. And we're done. And now I'm using a thicker brush to put on the heavy black, because something I loved about Jack Kirby's drawing is that he liked to use black to really accentuate the contrast as well as show the very darkness of the shadows. And since Thanos is wearing armor, and I also want to give off the feeling that it's very high-end and quality armor, a lot of shine really helps with that. And one of the things I wanted to do on this picture is really, express that the light source is coming from him clasping that destroyed Earth in the Infinity Gauntlet. So that's why on one half of his body I'm using a lot of black. On the other half I'm using very little. As you can see here on his right side, he's I'm going to town with the black, just smothering that mother in. And, you know, with the thick brush, I also have also a lot of room of, you know, to make some errors because it's on a separate layer. And with an eraser, I can always shape it into the form I want it to be in the end. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. Ah, that's delicious. I'd like to thank No Name Water for sponsoring this video, even though they don't exist. Okay, maybe I kind of overestimated how long this part should have been. You know what, in the future references, I think I might just speed this up to like maybe a minute. Because, I mean, it's I got nothing more to talk about until the coloring comes in. And I always do that on a separate layer below the ink lines, because that way, yeah, it just comes out better. I mean, some people ask, why don't you just make the ink lines into a multiply layer, or the color into a multiply layer, but I tried that once and it just didn't work well. I prefer just doing things in layers and then piling them on top of one another. I usually like to have the ink lines on the very top layer. Well, not on the very top layer, on the second most top layer. Okay, what I did here was I lowered the opacity on the ink lines because I wanted to do something different. Instead of them being like, you know, fully black, I lowered the opacity so it's a sort of a gray tone and it kind of mixes in well with the the colors below it. Then when, and I don't know why, but it gives a nice effect. I mean, I'm not sure if I might continue with this, but, you know, could be cool for certain drawings. Okay, now we're moving on to the shadow, which I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this numerous times in my other videos. I use a rounded square brush. I lower the opacity to 50%, and I turn on the transfer, so that it gives that nice sort of built-up brush feel. And as you know before, the light source is coming from the ruined earth in his hand, in his left hand. And since that's the light source, the right side of his body needs to be heavily shadowed. So we're just going to smother his right side complete in shadow. First of all, just, you know, cover most of it with the gray tone in the multiply layer. And then use the eraser tool to shape it in the way we want it to be in the end. Just like this. First we cover most of the things we want in the shadow, and then shape it to what we want with the eraser tool. And of course, light kind of bends around rounded objects, or rounded objects. So when it comes to the muscles and stuff, in certain areas of the armor, you can add a few shine lines here and there. Just, you know, use the eraser tool to get rid of some of the shadow. Like I said before, shape it to what you think it should look like. And of course, lots of shadow on the legs, because I mean, that's not the most important part, because that's just to be, in the end, most of it's going to be covered with a special effect. And of course, I always like to shade the face in last, because I mean, I like doing faces for last, because that's my favorite part of any drawing, the face. And of course, since he's got those cool ass lines or scars, you can play around with the shadow on that. Okay, now we're on the highlight layer. So with a lighter shade of gray on a screen layer above the multiply layer, we just, you know, go to town, because, I mean, the light source is the ruined earth, so we really need to, you know, play heavy on his right side. No, his left side. Really drench that in light. And add just some small bits of light on his right side to show that it's really, you know, wrapping around. And of course his face, if that's important. Okay, now we add in some yellow on a overlay layer to show that the explosion is coming from the earth, and it's a very warm explosion, so it has to be hot, so yellow is usually the best color. And of course with a sort of a dirt brush, I add texture on the earth, and well, my normal texture on the rest of the body. And when it came to the background, I used a picture of a galaxy, and then for the explosion, I used a picture of supernova, which I then photoshopped and kind of erased a little bit to fit in with the rest. And then to really add in a special effect, I used a fog brush around him. Then I used a Kirby brush on the explosion, used a radial blur, and added some special effects, and of course my trusty parchment texture, and here we go. Thanos, the Mad Titan, in all his glory. So I'm actually super excited about Infinity War. If you are too, please let me know in the comments. And if you might have some other suggestions on who else from Infinity War I could draw, or just, you know, for fun. And if you just have some general questions on what I do, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this, and hopefully I see you next time. Bye-bye!